Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Experience, live with Russ and Scott.
Welcome to The Experience, live with Russ and Scott.
Special thank you to our sponsors, the Gillette Home team of Keller Williams Willamette. For all your real estate needs, go to teamgillette.com. And for more information on Boson Hub and their digital services, go to bosonhub.com. And for information on the Oregon Fire Museum and the Father's Day run coming up on June 18th, go to OregonFireMuseum.org.
And there it is right there, the Father's Day Breakfast and Cruise In, part of the Oregon Fire Museum. Father's Day Firehouse fun coming right up. Make sure you scan that little QR code. It's going to take you to their Facebook page. So I'm going to leave that up for a moment. And right there behind this, by the way, while you're scanning that code, is Shri, our guest host, and me, live on The Experience with Russ and Scott. Russ is a little under the weather because of his treatments. And so Shri has graciously jumped in to co-host today, reminding everybody that we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. The Experience Live with Russ and Scott, and now Shri is 7 a.m. Pacific time every Wednesday. And we have the most remarkable guests. And today we've got Dave and Gail. We're going to talk manufacturing. Dave has something to tell you, but he won't tell you. So we're going to find out what that is. But Shri, thank you for jumping in and tell everybody what is going on in your world and give us a little introduction for those who don't tune in at 6:30 in the morning and watch us on Wednesday live on Instagram.
Yes, we start off The Experience backstage on Instagram every Wednesday morning. We've been doing it for over a year now. That's super crazy. Mm-hmm. Hi, Whitney. And we start there. We just give tips on live streaming, video, and then even book. And then we come over here to The Experience on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere that it is, stream to. And my name is Shri. I'm a video marketing producer. I help entrepreneurs create engaging videos that make them money. And this includes live streaming and video. I also have a team where we help you give back time because we know what it takes to have to do your social media posts, come up with guests, take care of the backstage, like the graphics, making sure and turning that content into a podcast and even short audio clips, video clips. But I am honored to be here. I do miss Russ because this show would be better with Russ. But you know what? Today you get a substitute.
Hey, let's add this in for a moment. Yeah, because we know that Russ brings the energy, and when Russ wasn't here one time, I brought that little clip of Kermit in, and just pumps us up.
It does. It really does. I love the energy. And you know what? That's what makes it so much fun.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. Who are our guests?
Yeah, so we've got this is the manufacturing show. We're going to have fun today. Well, let's bring in Dave Crysler first. We were talking right beforehand, and I mentioned that in the green room right beforehand we're talking, and Dave's like, I said, so what do you have coming up? And he's like, well, I've got this super secret project. It's going to be amazing. Going to just change the world, and I'm not going to tell anyone about it.
Way to tease that, T. Scott Smith. Thank you so much for that.
All right, tell us, David, what is going on in your world?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. My name's Dave Crysler, and I founded a operations consulting business a few years back. And so we work with folks in manufacturing and distribution, helping them to optimize their processes, build out new systems, and really figure out ways to capture the things that they're doing on any given basis to drop those savings right to the bottom line. So it's stuff that I've done for more than 20 years now. I absolutely love it. Every day's a new adventure. And so I'm not going to talk about the super secretive project that I have in the wings just yet. But perhaps it does involve maybe another guest that you will be bringing out here today. So we'll see if we're going to talk about that or not today.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that we're talking about, and Gail, I'm going to bring you in for to the show here. Welcome. It was funny because, we communicate about this show, about the experience through LinkedIn messaging. And Ever's putting stuff together. Thank you, Ever, for all of your work, for the graphics, for your behind the scenes work here. And it was so funny because Gail sends this message through LinkedIn, says, all right, I'm going to jump in to the show from my car. And then when I get to my office, I'm going to jump from there. And here's what's really amazing. That's not amazing, right? A couple of years ago, we were like, go live from your car? Really? How does that? And now it's just like, oh yeah, it's normal every day. Gail, tell us, because curious minds want to know who Gail is and what's going on in your world.
And I want to add to that one thing, though, and this will do with process. One step I missed was that I forgot that when you go to LinkedIn, so before, because I was on a live radio show this morning, and I forgot that you have to go through Safari anyways. So then I thought, you know what? I'm just driving home and home office. I'm going to start. But it's funny things like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So yeah. So as you can tell, my background, I believe Let's Get Curious, and I help those in manufacturers, especially mold makers and those in the plastics world, to sign up, suit up, and show up. I'm a recovering journalist. So what that means is my background is in journalism, and I'm not in the mainstream. So what I'm trying to do is bring the idea of, the world of mold makers and plastics more into the broader public, and have people better understand what's happening. And part of doing that is to help them both tell and share their story. And because I work so long as a reporter, I know everyone has a story. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I use curiosity to help pull those stories out, and then utilize that skill to make sure they're sharing it with the broader world. And it's not just for sales, it's also for recruiting and retention. And so I also kind of connect those dots between all of those worlds. And we need to start spreading the news.
It's going to be a great show when Gail starts singing.
That's right. I'm getting ready for karaoke season again. Now that I've done curling on Friday night, I got to get back into karaoke.
All right. I love curling. I love watching curling. Just to give you an idea. So coming from a Mexican family background, I was looking actually when the Olympics were in Vancouver, and I'm in Oregon. So when they're in Vancouver, British Columbia, I thought, it's a short drive. And what if I got 3 of my cousins and myself, and we formed our own curling team and represented Mexico? And I actually literally did all the work to see, could we create a team? And just so I could walk into the Olympic Stadium representing Mexico as the curling team. But the rules wouldn't allow it. But I tried. I figured it out. I was going to try to
Creative.
figure it out. A great
That
way
would
to
have been
promote stuff is through video. And Shri, uh, let's just talk some about this. How these stories, as Gail says, everybody's got a story. And
They
what's the
do.
best way?
The best way is always looking at how do you connect the dots? Like, how did you get to where you are today? And that's the beautiful part of storytelling, is going back and talking about your journey. So it could be that maybe when you were getting your first time prepared for an event, maybe it was getting on stage to do a public speaking at school, or maybe it was that aha moment you had when you realized what you thought was real is really not. And then putting that all together brings you to where you are today. Sometimes I think about, well, how would I have gotten on live? Well, I think about like years ago when I was younger, I always wanted to have my own show. So guess what? I have my own show. But I had to go back to that moment in time because we are living so much. And going back, that's when I realized, I used to always pretend. I would always do the opening scene because I loved the Full House and how they always had the people, they would do something, then they would stop. And that was just what I would role play. And then here we are so many years later doing that. And so even if you look at Dave or even Gail, it's like, what was the first time that you did something that was outside of your comfort zone and you realized, hey, I like this. I want to keep doing this.
Yeah. And so the technology has really changed. And Gail, as we mentioned earlier, you're like, oh, I'm going to be in my car and then I'll be at home. Today, that's just a part of our normal lives, but not necessarily for everyone.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, I was just talking about this earlier on the radio show about another topic, but sometimes it's too easy for us to only see through our own perspective. And it's really important that we widen that and look at where everybody's at. So one of the things I have been doing with my business has been shifting a bit to working with people, because especially in mold making and in the plastics, there's so many great stories. But they may look at what I'm doing or what we're talking about and go, oh, that's just too much. They're afraid of video. They're afraid to do something different, get outside their comfort zone. So what I'm trying to do is go back to that, foundation. And I'm sure Dave can talk about this, because one thing I've learned listening to Dave about process is the simplicity of it. And sometimes we think everything has to be complicated, and actually it doesn't. And the first step is, jumping in. And I have so many, that's in my DNA. If there's like something new to try or get outside my comfort zone, I'm kind of comfortable doing that, but I recognize I'm an outlier. I'm not typical of what most people would want to do. So I think that's a good conversation to have, is that, you have to start somewhere, but don't necessarily start where each of us are at, or that just because, there's some things like I don't find comfortable, right? So I may choose not to do that, but I can still start small.
It's defining what is uncomfortable for you. Like, for example, it could be just recording a video on your phone, but you don't post it anywhere. And then the next step is posting the video. Or maybe it might be just sending it to a friend. Then it's posting on social media. So it's defining what is uncomfortable and taking that step towards that uncomfortable.
I think about these tangled messes, Dave, and but it's not that complicated, actually, if you start to break things down into their components.
Yeah, when, oftentimes when you look at a situation, especially through the lens of a process, it can be overwhelming, right? And it doesn't matter what that process is. It could be specific to manufacturing, talking about something related to cycle times, those types of things, or it could be what you guys are talking about from the standpoint of getting uncomfortable and kind of putting yourself out there from a content creation standpoint. And I think where the biggest roadblock lies for most people is, again, kind of looking at that and saying, oh my gosh, where do I start? This is so convoluted. I'm not sure even where do I start? How do I go to the next step? And, I shared a quote the other day from Simon Sinek, and I think it just kind of, highlights exactly how to get started. Right. And the quote was something along the lines of, it doesn't matter, when we start, it doesn't matter where we start. All that matters is that we start. And that's the reality of what we're talking about, especially with the work that I do from a process optimization standpoint. We have to understand what's the current state. We talk to all the stakeholders and understand, what are we doing today? And, back to what Gail had said in terms of being curious, and there is some uncomfortability around being curious, right? Especially from a leadership perspective, because oftentimes you can look at it and say, boy, I used to do this. I know this process. And the reality of it is that you may have done that, but when's the last time you did it? And what has changed since then? So, you've got to engage the people that are closest to those processes. You've got to get curious. You've got to ask questions. And that is where, kind of the beauty of optimization comes in by pooling people's ideas together. You're still, from a leadership perspective, you're still kind of in control, setting the tone, setting the goals, deciding what that final kind of direction is. But it's that collective brain power and tapping into that. That's where the real magic happens. And when you start to get comfortable engaging in that, in that sense, you're going to see some incredible things unfold in your organization. I guarantee it. I've just seen it time and time again.
And right here on the Experience Live with Russ and Scott, new words being created, uncomfortability. So we got a new hashtag.
I like to make things up as I go.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is the great thing about manufacturing. If anyone has spent any time in a manufacturing facility, they don't just buy stuff off the shelf. They have problems and they go, oh, we need this. And so they create a 6-foot long screwdriver because no one manufactures one, but we need one. And so they make a 6-foot long screwdriver or other things. So here's the interesting thing. I want to talk about how we apply these concepts around manufacturing to those people who are not in manufacturing, because actually everything that we do is very similar to a manufacturing process. You've got inputs and outputs, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on, whether you're using injection molding to manufacture that stuff, or you're moving information along. So Gail, tell us about this, because as a journalist, obviously you weren't manufacturing things, but you were creating, and it was a process.
Yeah. And one of the things I've learned, because where I'm at in my journey in life is that I'm on about my 5th career. So I was a journalist. I ran a bed and breakfast on an island. And then I was a fundraiser. And then I managed an advertising and promotion department and now have my own business. So the reason, and I've worked in insurance, I've worked in manufacturing. The reason I say that is that it's really important, whoever's listening, we can be talking about manufacturing. We can be talking about anything. And the process involves something called transferable skills. So once you have certain skills, you can adapt them to whatever project you're working on. And I would say, I'm someone who believes we learn in everything we're doing. So, when I started curling, it's all about strategy and it's about focus. And, I'm getting health benefits, but it's also using my mind. Same thing with cycling. So I'd say it's also about setting goals, being consistent. And this applies whether we're talking manufacturing, whether you have a retail store, whether you have an online business, the same basic rules apply. And working in marketing, I have had the benefit of being able to learn to ask questions and put together stories. So now I use that in the manufacturing world, but I also have other clients outside of manufacturing because I can just apply the same principles. And I think that's really good, Scott, that, as anybody listening, this isn't only Dave and I talking about manufacturing. The same rules apply right across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been I've been involved in high tech and low tech manufacturing, agriculture, manufacturing for IKEA, sofas and chairs, financial services. And people ask me, how can you be involved in so many diverse types of endeavors? And I said, it's all people and process. That's the theme that runs through everything. Shri?
Oh, I was just gonna say it's that question because I've been writing stuff down or typing it on my phone. But it's, to ask yourself that question when you sit down, when you're deciding what is my next step look like, going back into your journey of life, but it's also what's the transferable skills that can help you today? Where are
Mhm.
you in your journey today? Because maybe 5 years ago, I wasn't into live streaming or video, but there's a lot of transferable skills that I had acquired along my journey. If somebody had asked me at that point in time, I would have been aware, like, hey, some of this detail to where, how I look and see and feel online, to eat the financials, because I was a financial analyst, looking at the numbers, reading reports. So seeing, hey, this is where I'm getting really good traction. Maybe I should be doing my live at this time or posting my content at this time. So just because you're in one industry does not mean that it can't be transferred to today. If I'm an example. I was a financial analyst and now I'm a remote producer, which have nothing to do with each other. But like Gail mentioned, there's transferable skills that
Mhm.
apply in both.
Dave, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Gail and Shri said. I think the other aspect, and you touched on this, when I look at, from a process perspective, how to break things down, talking about those transferable skills, right? Every business is created with a series of business systems. And, not having a system is the system, right? So, you kind of joke about that. But, for some businesses, and again, outside of manufacturing, inside of manufacturing, none of that really matters. But when we think about it, we break those business systems down into, what I call 4 different buckets: planning, people, process, right? You mentioned the people and process. The fourth one for me is technology. And
Mhm.
I think where a lot of people end up getting bogged down, whether it's from the transferable skills aspect or developing systems, it is around that technology piece, because we've kind of been fed this idea that technology is there to solve all of our problems. And the reality of it is, if we don't have the people and process dialed in, the technology just convolutes and complicates things. So, in our pursuit to solve problems within our businesses, within specific processes, we constantly are looking to implement technology to do that, when the reality of it is, so much could be completed manually and outside of technology to clarify what the process is, to get people on board, to have a better, more cohesive planning system. Then you can look for that technology to help you automate the execution of those processes that have already been outlined. And so, I encourage people to look at, whatever technology stack you have today within your business. Um, you know, you are more than likely not utilizing all of the features and benefits, the advantages of that technology stack today before you're looking to potentially implement or replace that
Mhm.
technology with a new solution. So, as much as I love technology, and I used to solve problems from a technology forward perspective, it
Mhm.
really is something beneficial to looking at things, kind of taking that step back, getting things documented from a manual perspective, and it makes it easy. When I can,
Mhm.
solve a problem, literally drawing a process on a notepad with a pen and
I
paper,
love it.
all of a sudden I don't really need to know how to use this specific tool. I don't need to know how to, involve people in a different office from a sharing perspective. We could jump on a call like this and I can hold up my notepad and show you what I just doodled, and you get
Mhm.
an immediate and clear picture of what I'm talking about. So that's another aspect I think that, often gets overlooked or kind of gets pushed forward in all of what we're talking about, from a process perspective.
Yeah.
So
It comes down to the fundamentals. So when I was running logistics operations at Hewlett Packard, and logistics, it's just moving stuff around, right? And so we were changing from one software system to another software system, right? So we were using Stockmaster and we were changing to SAP. Well, SAP was like the world standard, and this is kind of the thing. And my crew, I tell you, it was just going to kill the company. It was this and that and all these things. And, this new software is going to take longer and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I said, and many of them had been there for years, for more than 15 years. Well, Stockmaster hadn't been there for 15 years. It was about 5 years old. And so, okay, I asked them, do you remember what you used before Stockmaster? Yeah, we used the Promise system. Okay. What did you say about Stockmaster when it was coming online? and it was the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It was going to kill the company. It was going to take longer, and it wasn't going to give them accurate information. It says, okay, so the system that you love today was the one that you hated when it was coming online. Well, let's talk about what is it that we do anyway? In logistics, you only do 3 things. You receive, store, and deliver. And so it doesn't matter whether you're using Promise, Stockmaster, SAP, clay tablets, or goat skins. It's the same process. And they're like, oh, yeah. So Gail.
Just to add to that, one of the things is this just came up the other night when I was cycling, and someone asked, because I've gone from a cruiser bike to a hybrid bike to a road bike. And right now I'm on my road bike and I'm complaining. I'm like, I miss my hybrid bike. But I said the same thing when I was on my hybrid bike. I go, I miss my cruiser bike. So, but I'm getting used to it. You know what? The more it's mindset. So the other night I did 30 kilometers. I don't know what it is in miles, but it was so easy, right? On the road bike. And a couple of weeks back, it wasn't as easy. So, I think it applies, like your question asked earlier, is that think about things you've done in your life that, when you did it over and over again, it gets easier. And I think that's what Dave was mentioning too. What I really like is sometimes if you need to use a paper and pad, use that. But I used to use a calendar. I used to have a paper calendar and an online. Then what happened though, I had chaos because then I'd miss something. So then I just forced myself to go all in on a digital calendar. But I still have a paper one just for when I want to just map out ID, like skip. But then it's more of a problem solving or planning as opposed to using it for appointments. So.
Yeah, there's some benefits to pencil and paper.
Yeah, there is.
Just as Dave was saying.
And I think we need to let people chill out a little bit here and just say, start where you're at. And if you wanted, that's why I often say with new people I'm working with is do one LinkedIn post. Can you do one a month?
Right.
Can you do one every 2 months? Can you make that just whatever you do? And that relieves a lot of pressure when I say, oh, really? You can do that? Because they hear oh, you got to do one a day. And it's like, oh, no.
I'm a big believer in journaling, and this is a way to start the day. Read, do some journaling, and it's a habit. But some people are like, oh gosh, every day I don't know what to write or anything. Well, I said, let's look back at some of the journals, because we live out here on the West Coast, and you've got Lewis and Clark and all these folks, right, that traveled out, and they kept journals. And sometimes their journal entry was, it rained all day. Right? And I'm like, how about you start your journal and you wrote up and you're like, I got out of bed. Right?
Some days that's
small. Right? I'm just saying, just start small. As we wind this down, Gail, I want to come back and have you share some highlights and how people can do business with you. Well, let's just jump into that. How do people do business with you? What are your thoughts?
Well, the easiest way is they can, you Google Gail now, you'll find me just about anywhere. I'm on most platforms and I do check pretty much, regularly. Probably the one I'm on daily for sure would be, it's right now, Twitter and LinkedIn are pretty pretty big ones for me. But I'm also, use YouTube. So I'm pretty much everywhere. If people want to do business, it's really a matter of just reaching out, having a conversation. And the first thing I start at with is I ask them, what are your goals? What are your objectives? And this is a key thing. I may not be the right fit. So what I usually do, I'll talk to people. And if I go, you know what, I know someone else who might be the perfect fit to help you. And it may not be me. I may be involved some way. And I have passed along business that way. So I want people to know there's no obligation, like if they reach out and it's not a right fit. A lot of times people just are struggling with, and I have to say full credit to Dave. Dave and I have had talks and conversations, and he's very helpful. And sometimes it's good to just bounce ideas off someone. So.
Excellent. And Dave, let's put this up here because uncomfortability.
You like that?
Dave's new word. So new things being created all the time. So we're definitely not closing down the patent office because not everything has been invented yet. So Dave, give us your final words here, and how do people do business with you, and what problem are they experiencing that they're just going, wow, Dave's the man?
Yeah, I mean, we really help with kind of all things optimization. So if you are looking towards, ways to operate with excellence, from a quality perspective, from a process perspective, looking for ways to drop savings to the bottom line, looking for ways to impact your culture at the same time. That's the type of work that we do. And similar to Gail, I mean, I'd love to have a conversation. We have a few different ways to engage together, whether that's one-on-one work or in a community type setting. We have that is available as well. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the platform I'm most active on, but I am in many places. So you can search my name, you could search the company name, and you should be able to come across me. Or, potentially uncomfortability. I might start using that as a SEO keyword now.
I think that's a good hashtag. And if people want to know about this super cool thing that's coming up that you're not going to tell anyone about, make sure
stay tuned.
Yeah, see, Gail knows. Stay tuned. They're trying to get it out of me, Gail, but I won't crack just yet.
I will say stay tuned with Dave. We've had some conversations, and he also is hashtag King of Process. And I just want to say, anybody listening, just please have a conversation with Dave, because tell him if even for manufacturers, anyone that's there listening, like if you have a problem, talk to him, and I know he can help figure things out. So he helps get stuff done too through process, and don't let technology hold you back. There's
ever put it in King of Process.
Oh boy,
process. There we go.
All right, well, it's great to have royalty on the show today. Gail, Dave, I'm going to push you into the green room, and Shri and I are going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much. Just fabulous.
Thank you, guys. Always a great show.
Hold on just a minute. I'm going to do, while we're live, I want to get a photo because I'm going to post this right on, because I'm going to do this all like old school instead of, there we go. And I can post this on Twitter.
All right. So make sure you're following, and not just like things, but please reshare. So go onto Twitter and hit the retweet button. It's a great way to care. All right. Stand by. We'll be with you in just a moment. Shri, I love this comment from Diane. I journal every day. It's my mindful journal to bring forward those ideas we tend to put in the back of our minds. And 10 minutes of free write, just to practice writing whatever comes to mind.
It helps so much.
Yeah. It's just do it, right? If you want to be good at something, just do it.
And you'll find out, why are you stuck on something? Where did something begin? Like if you were believing that this is the truth and you realize this isn't the truth, to realizing, hey, I can do whatever it is that I put and set my heart onto.
I love it. Hey, and right there, you're going to be on Randy Penner's networking tomorrow, BizNet Sparks. Tell people a little bit about that and how people can get a hold of you as well.
So tomorrow I'm going to be speaking at BizSpark Networking. It's every second and fourth Thursday of the month, where you can network with other wonderful entrepreneurs like D. Scott and myself. And they also have guest speakers. Tomorrow I'm speaking about live streaming and video. So if you are looking for some tips to help you want to join in, and you can connect with me here on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. And I also am in the works of putting together a 5-day challenge that will be taking place on May 22nd. And it's all about what's stopping you from getting on camera and helping you to get past that. So if you're interested in any of this and you want to know more, you can connect with me, or you can just ask D. Scott and just be like, hey, you know that girl that you had on there instead of Russ? Can you tell me more?
All right. Well, thanks for jumping in and being the co-host today on The Experience Live with Russ and Scott. Even though Russ is in recovery right now, Russ, our hearts and prayers are with you and your family. And we will just sign off with that. So, Shri, again, thank you so much. Remember, every Wednesday at 6:30 a.m. live on Instagram, Russ and Shri and Scott, and then The Experience live at 7 a.m. And then tune in tomorrow for at 8 a.m. Pacific time for Marketing with Russ, aka hashtag Russ Selfie. And with that, we will see you all. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to The Experience Live with Russ and Scott. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or subscribe on YouTube. See you next time.